Folks, we're Tassos today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio, audio, no pictures live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about a very disturbing and relatively recent trend, certainly in the West, where, and I've in the thumbnail, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, where there are those in amongst the elite now that claim that the most diabolical actions, the greatest illegality, the fabrication of evidence, planting of false evidence, bearing false witness, coaching people to become false witnesses, corruption of judicial and legal processes, mass scale fraud in elections and rigging elections, and so on and so forth. These are all perfectly the mass spreading of outrageous lies, grotesque untruths through propaganda in the media. All of this is acceptable, if not an expression of goodness, if it's done by morally superior people. So these folks confer upon, this is the globalist cabal and their minions, confer upon themselves the high priestesses, the high chamberlains of the globalist project, but they say that they have a moral right to do terrible wrongs in the name of right or pursuit of some ideological goal. Now, this is very much part of ideological government. If we look at the communist governments of Stalin and Mao and Pol Pot and so on, and Erich Honecker in East Germany and around Eastern Europe, the Ceausescu in Romania and so on. The list goes on. They did the most terrible things in pursuit of some. We're allowed to do these terrible things. We're allowed to kill millions of people, just brutally kill millions. We're allowed to do this because we're pursuing paradise. We are pursuing paradise, so we are allowed to do it. Not only are we allowed to do it, we're good people by doing it. What, you mean you're good people by killing millions? Yes, because we're pursuing a paradise, and therefore we're allowed to do it. And if you want to question us or stop us, then we'll kill you as well. So this is very much the ideological shtick, and we need to sort of understand that as the underwriting principle of what I'm about to talk about. Now, that it's come to Western society is probably the bigger issue, because the societies that went communist were really, for the main at least, peasant societies, and some off-the-planet radicals took control. None of these countries or places had accepted the, if you like, the scientific method, the rational method of doing things and of ordering society and business and contracts and legal and so on. None of those societies had embraced that, but the West had, particularly, say, Britain. But now we're seeing a reversal, if you like, an unraveling of that, where superstition and ideology are replacing this, if you like, the scientific factual contract that the elites and the populace all abided by. So the elites in the West, the globalist cabal, if I can use that wider term, they're moving away from the scientific method and rational fact, and they're moving to, if you like, what would have been in effect, more or less at least, medieval superstition. So I'm at one of my famous, my wife and I go to one of our famous barbecue lunches. I think this one was a lunch, and a number of subjects came up, and I'll run through, and I'll have to paraphrase it just to get through it. Is it okay to rig an election if you stop Donald Trump from becoming president? Yes, of course it is, say these. Yes, absolutely. Well, to rig an election means you're breaking, fuck knows how many laws. You're corrupting God knows how many election officials and so on. I mean, that's acceptable. Yes, it is, because we're stopping Trump, and therefore we're stopping Hitler, and therefore because he would prevent this ideological paradise from occurring. Now we can't say what the so that's acceptable. What about these cases against Trump where clearly evidence is fabricated, clearly witnesses are being coached to tell commit the most terrible perjuries? Judges, activist judges are being appointed, activist prosecutors, activist everything. I mean, it's again, numerous laws being broken, complete corruption of due legal process and the judicial process, and so is that acceptable? Yes, of course it's acceptable. You silly man! Of course it's acceptable. We're allowed to do this, but aren't those things bad? Well, if other people did it, it would be bad. But when we do it, it's good. Because we're good people. We are the morally superior ones. We are the high chamberlains. And therefore, when we do the most terrible bad things, it's actually good. Oh, shit. Okay. Glad I understand that now. Now, this was pretty much any subject you brought up. For example, there was a Catholic priest that was sent to prison on obviously, bullshit charges. And he was taken into a very ideological court in an ideological place. Judges were sent, the prosecutors and judges were appointed that were obviously going to put him into prison. The evidence was so scanty and so, it was so fucking vague, so absent. It's the classic thing. He did these things to me. Can't remember when. No, don't really remember anything. I can remember the place. I think it was, and so on and so forth. So absolutely ridiculous. But the court, nonetheless, an ideological court of ideological hack goons, decided to throw him in prison. The guy won on appeal and all this sort of stuff, but he was completely bankrupted by it all. But the point was talking to some people about this. Now, bear in mind, in this people at this lunch were talking as lawyers, judges, prosecutors, various public servants, senior media personalities, this sort of thing. So these are the sort of people that are there. And they were all unanimously adamant that it was quite acceptable to we've got to send a message to these Catholic priests because we've got to let the Christians, because don't you know that Nazis and neo-Nazis, white supremacists and Christians, they're all really part of the same. Don't you know that? So we have to send a message to them. We have to just let them know that they're on notice, and we won't put up with white supremacists, fascist, Nazi, Hitlers here. Wait a minute, stop. The guy's a Catholic priest. Well, what's this got to do with Hitler and white supremacy and Nazis? Well, they kind of, because Christianity, it kind of enables this because white people get together and that means they're Nazis because and this bullshit was coming out. But this was the general idea. So all right, then let's assume that is the case. So why should we send, or why should an innocent man be sent to prison? And why should the government, in this case, radicals and activists in the government, not only bring false charges, but actually coach witnesses to give false testimony, commit perjury to bear false witness? And why should that be told? Well, it's kind of, maybe ideally it's not the nicest thing, but we're good people, so we're doing these things, these really bad things, these really fucking bad things, illegal. We're doing it for good reasons, because we have to send a message to these people that they're not allowed to, Nazis, Hitler, and fascist, and white supremacy. So we're going to send a message to them that this won't be tolerated. So just sending an innocent guy to prison, he's quite a senior priest, but just sending him to prison is a message to let these people know that we're watching, and we're going to put them in their place, and we're going to humiliate them publicly so what we did, or what happened rather, was acceptable. Now, there was a lawyer there who he'd probably been in his late 50s, I suppose, and he was the only one in this group that goes, he winced a bit at this idea of stacking the deck and false witnesses and planting evidence and this sort of thing, ideological fanatics doing the prosecuting. He winced a bit at that. But he didn't disagree that, even though he didn't like procedurally how they went about it, he didn't disagree that this was an acceptable, ultimately the goal, the objective, like putting the guy in prison and the message it sent, that was acceptable, but he winced a bit. But none of the others, some of them had no qualms at all. One person at the group even just, oh yeah, well he's an arrogant prick anyway. The priest, he's an arrogant prick anyway, so he deserved what was going. What? What? You think, in your opinion, he's arrogant, therefore bearing false witness, planting evidence, activists, judges, activists, all that's said because you think the guy's fucking arrogant. I mean, gee whiz, what's next? The neighbour's dog pisses on your lawn, so kill him or something. Where does this sort of shit end? This is what happens when people don't follow the rules, and they say, well, the rules can be suspended for us because we're the good people. They are the bad people, so we're allowed to do it. Now, this, as you probably know from people who look at or listen to my vids and so on, this is a pet peeve of mine. Once you start breaking the rules like this, where do you end up going with it? Now, there's a certain argument, and there's a few videos and commentaries running around at the moment where there are people who actually think they're good people. I'm a good person. I'm a good person. And when I break the rules, when I break the law, and when I bear false witness, when I plant evidence, and when I fabricate evidence, when I do it, it's for a good reason. So I'm good. I'm still good. I'm only doing these bad things because they are so bad, and they make me do the bad things because I'm stopping them because they're bad and they're Hitler and no. So they still believe or do believe that somehow they're good, and it's quite acceptable to do this way if you stopping, as they would perceive it, bad things. So now the road to hell paved with good intentions. Let's have a little look at that. You can have people that genuinely do try and do something good, think they're doing. They just the execution, and they haven't thought it through well enough, and they fuck up on the details, but their intentions were good. There wasn't anything sinister. There are those that plot and scheme to break the law, break the rules, again, plant false evidence, tell lies, all these sort of things, mass grotesque untruths. There are those people that do, and there are those that get suckered into it and kind of go along with it. So you can have the three. Now, the people at the, and I can cite other examples, the people at this particular barbecue or lunch, they believed that any law breaking, any rule breaking, any telling of lies, any fabrication of evidence, any planting of evidence, all of it was acceptable if you're in pursuit of the ideological goal. And if you're pursuing that ideological goal, then you are automatically a good person, which then makes all your evil quite acceptable. I was staggered. It was jaw-dropping stuff. Now, remember, these aren't just sort of goons off the street, rando goons off the street. These are the people that pull the levers about. They're the judges, the lawyers, the public servants, a dean of a university or deputy dean of a university. These are the sort of people there. And yet or a captain of industry. These are the sort of people. These people are the custodians of the levers of power in Western society. And this is how they fucking behave. This is what they fucking believe. It's insane. But there you go. Now let's talk a little bit about people that have good intentions and they accidentally, or just maybe they don't have the brain power to work it all through, but fuck it up. Now, there was a particular a pest that was eating crops in Australia, and a natural predator for these pests was found. And it came from like another location or another country. Now there was a slight difference though. The pest, the insect that this predator was supposed to eat, was a slightly different one. This other area, the pest was ground dwelling, and even though it was the same sort of species, but the one in Australia had evolved so it lived off the ground. So it lived a few inches off the ground, or a distance off the ground anyway. And so when they brought this predator in, of course, it didn't. The species of insect it was supposed to eat was slightly different. So it actually ended up not eating. So it ended up having a different insects that it ate. Those insects, it turned out, kept another insect away. So then there was, not only was the original infestation not cleared, but there was now a new infestation that was cleared. Then this particular predator had a poisonous effect on the natural predators that it would have had, and so those predators died. Those predators, in turn, were keeping another pest in check, as a natural thing, and so therefore that pest suddenly, because these guys were dying of poisoning, this next infestation too. So it ended up being a royal disaster all around. Now there was no evil intent here, but it certainly wasn't thought through and considered carefully enough and well enough, and it turned out to be a disaster. But there was nothing sinister in that. Was it still a disaster that cost gazillions? Sure it was, but it wasn't sinister. Let's look at where people, again, the road to hell being paved with good intentions. I'll use an example from a play by Robert Bolt called A Man for All Seasons. It's about a British politician and judge called Sir Thomas More. Now, he was around during the time of Henry VIII, which was a tumultuous period in many ways in Britain. The changing over from the Catholic Church to the Protestant Church and the various goings on there. Something that didn't really play itself out properly for another 100+ years. Now, the king wanted to get divorced. He needed to produce an heir and hadn't been able to produce one at that time, or not a male heir at least. So he wanted to get divorced from a marriage that he was sort of heavied into by his advisors, and he a bit resented that. And so he wanted to get divorced, marry again, but the Pope that was being, at the time, that was almost under imprisonment from the Spanish troops that were in Italy at the time, he wouldn't give his sanction for the divorce, and the princess that Henry VIII wanted divorce from was a Spanish princess. The Spanish king and his troops were in control of the Pope, so it kind of wasn't going to happen. It was always a long shot. So, but the king wanted to go ahead with it anyway. But he needed a very prominent theologian, Thomas More, who was also a judge and a politician. He needed a very prominent theologian to give it his blessing. Thomas More refused. So Henry VIII, on trumped up bullshit charges, had him killed. Now there's a scene in this Man for All Seasons which could play out today just as poignantly, where Thomas More's having a conversation with somebody, and they're talking about what they would do to prosecute the devil. And remember the very religious sort of era, and this is pre the scientific age, of course. So the one guy says, Will Roper is his character, but one guy says, look, I would cut down every law in the land to be able to get at the devil and prosecute the devil and put the devil in prison or have him hanged or something. So I would cut down every law because the devil is so evil that I'd be allowed, it's quite permissible to do that. So as Thomas More responds and says, well, okay, you've cut down every law. There is no law anywhere anymore. And then the devil turns on you. And the devil then comes after you. And you say, well, the devil can't do me because I've got all these laws to protect me. But there's no more laws left. You've taken them all away. What then would you do? Oh, that's different. I'm the good guy, though. I'm allowed to get the bad guy. The bad guy's not allowed to. No, that's not how it works. Once you take away all the rules, take away all the laws, suddenly it's anarchy. And then you want the laws to protect you, but they're gone. And you want your laws, the same laws, to uniquely protect you, but not protect someone else you don't like. That doesn't work either. So this is a situation where we're in now in the Western world, where the globalists are trying to impose ideological government on the West, but they can't do it as long as the laws remain in place. So they have to remove, subvert, corrupt, and otherwise remove the laws to the extent that it suits them, but they still want to use the laws to get you, but they don't want to be accountable for it. So all the laws that were broken to go and get the Catholic priest, for example, they would be horrified to think that one of their number was being pursued in the same way, with fabricated evidence on that. That would be terrible. Oh no, we can't have that. The law. But wait a minute. Why are the laws not? But he's the bad guy. We're the good guys. We're allowed to do it. He's not. And this is where we're at now in the West. So if we look at the application of the law, it's now a multi-tier device where it's a blunt instrument to beat up on straight white people who maybe question or don't agree with the globalist project, the ideological imposition of government without the consent of the people, and those that are useful for the fracturing and undermining of Western society. Islamic marches, Palestinian marches, that's good for undermining Western society, so we'll allow that to happen. We won't apply the law there. What about the white people that oppose COVID? We will oppose. COVID is a useful device for, again, undermining social cohesion. So if white people who want social cohesion oppose it, then the full force of the law, we will go after those. So we're allowed to rig elections because if Donald Trump gets in, then the globalist project is slowed down or stopped. So we're allowed to rig elections to do that. And if anyone complains about it, then the full force of the law will be brought to bear against them. But if Antifa and Black Lives Matter people torch buildings and go, then, they're performing a service for globalization. They're creating the very anarchy that we need in order to further the globalist process. So they're performing a service for us, so we won't go after them. And the climate change people, again, they're subverting and undermining Western society, so we won't apply the law to them, but we will to any few more than a couple of white people get together, then it's a neo-Nazi fascist Hitler rally, and we'll go after them and so on. We'll put false flags in there. There's a rally of people. Okay, well, we need to have FBI undercover agents, and they're all waving Nazi flags. And the list just goes on and on. The mass media, the lies and the untruths that are told in the mass media, the lies about Donald Trump and his team and so on. So these are the things that are fracturing and destroying Western society. But what we need to understand is, or even the e-safety, the supposed e-safety commissioner in Australia saying what is and isn't allowed to be seen online, and what is and isn't harmful, and these arbitrary somehow it's always issues that are unfavourable to the globalisation project that are deemed as misinformation or bad or harmful. Why is that? Why is it only ever one way? What about all the terrible things they've said about white people, the false accusations that white people are Nazis and fascists? Why isn't that harmful? But it never is. It's only a one-way street, this. But these people, and this is really what this sort of essay is about, is that these people don't believe they're doing anything bad. So we circulate mass grotesque untruths in the media, but we do it for a good cause, which is the globalization project. Don't you understand? We are going to put a paradise on earth in place, and you're worried about silly laws and silly little rules. And so what if we innocent people go to prison? So what if we fabricate it? So what if we rig elections? So what if we spread mass information in the media? We're doing it for we're creating a paradise. We're allowed to. Anyone that questions us and wants to stop it, they're all fascist Nazis, if not Hitler personally, and on it goes. And the people that hold the levers of power believe they are not just above the law, but above following the rules, above the social contract between fellow citizens. And all of that's gone now. And they perceive that they are the arbiters of all that is morally good. And therefore, whatever they do is either good in itself or for some good higher moral purpose, therefore permissible. They really believe that. They don't believe they're bad people. So this is insane. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.